That's such a cop-out answer to say, like, this car sucks, so, well, you know, we're gonna buy it and make it better. It's like, it should not suck from the factory. Hey everyone, welcome to Gear Glazers. I'm Kyle, and this is Mike, aka Sir Michael, the maverick of the unpopular opinion.
That's an accurate moniker, I agree.
And today we continue our series on JDM Legends Reborn, and we're talking about none other than the Nissan 400Z. Michael, talk to me.
Let's go, baby. So everybody wanted to call this thing the 400Z, but it didn't actually get that name. They just called it the Nissan Z.
It's the 400Z.
It's the 400. Everybody knows it's the 400Z.
That's all I know how to refer to this car as.
But yeah, they went with who did that? Did Xbox do that, where they had the Xbox 360 and then they just called it the Xbox One?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They just hit the we're done with numbers.
You know what? I can respect it though. At least they subtracted names instead of adding more names, which is something that we've been talking about in our past series. Yeah, we're not a fan of.
No, Mercedes would have called this the Nissan Fairlady Z Coupe Sport 400
straight up
GT-R.
So, dude, I think it's worth noting that your first car was a Z.
Yes, it was.
And my first car was also a Z. G35,
yeah,
but essentially a 350Z.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to say about the lineage of this car.
Mm-hmm. And this car is actually not too far off from that 350Z. It still shares that same platform.
Which is part of the problem. But we'll get there.
I would say that's not a problem. Look at what Porsche does.
So then maybe there's another problem. Because, well, before I get into my opinion on this car, let go ahead and say some good things about how we got here.
So, we know that this started with Datsun.
Yeah.
Back in 1969. This was the Japanese answer to the American pony car. The Mustang comes out, the Camaro comes out, the Charger comes out. They're like, okay, yeah, like there's a car market for a family sort of coupe that's sporty but reliable and also has a nice entry level price point. And they kind of took all of that feedback together, and Datsun at the time put out something that actually looked a lot like this thing.
Yeah, it does. It looks like the old Z.
Yeah. And that progressed over a few generations. It got its flowers in racing, in tuner culture, all the way up through the 90s in the Japanese horsepower race when the 300ZX or the Z32 was neck and neck with the likes of the Supra, the RX-7, the 3000 GT, the NSX, like big hitters. So it was right up there. And then it disappeared for a few years. Came back as the 350Z, which we all know from our high school parking lots.
Yeah.
Which turned into the 370Z. And then that 370Z went for way too long. Just sold from 2009 to 2019? Like it had just a clean 10-year run. And then now we have this thing. So
we talk about cars all the time. It's why we started this podcast, because we're always doing this even when we're not recording it. And it's funny because now we want to talk about cars, but we can't do it. We're like, we got to save it for the episode because we don't want to make our opinions jaded. We want to keep them authentic and share them for the first time. So when it's a specific vehicle, we're like, no, we're shooting that in a couple weeks. We're not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you have to say about this car, but I assume that they're fairly good things.
Yeah, I love this car.
Okay, so with that said,
what the hell?
I'm gonna go ahead and lock in. This car blows. This car sucks. This car completely is terrible. And let me tell you why. We're gonna get into it, but this completely missed the mark of what it was supposed to be. The 350Z, the G35, set a standard that this car absolutely obliterated. This is not a sports car.
Okay.
Just setting the tone. Just setting the tone right at the beginning.
I have many thoughts. Do you care to elaborate?
Yeah. So first things first, my G35, when I got it, remember, this car was 10 years older than the cars that I was competing against at that time. So 2005, you're, pulling up next to you at a stoplight is a 2015 Mustang. My car was faster from a dig. We got the video to prove it, Luca. My car was faster around the corners. It was nicer. It sounded better. It was just an all-around better car. And it was doing that, being 10 years older and being cheaper than the competing car. This is the opposite of that. This thing is slower than its rivals. It's worse in every way than a modern day sports muscle car. It's more expensive. It's worse in the corners, worse from a dig. Like, what does this thing have going for it?
Okay, I see where you're coming from in terms of, like, how much value and how long-lived the 2005 G35 was and the 350Z. I mean, there's something important to note about that, though, is, like, there was a massive lull in sports cars during that time. You had an insane 2003 year where the 350Z was launched. A lot of amazing cars came out in that time. I'm thinking about the C6 Corvette came out in that time.
Okay.
So you're looking at, you know, just a renaissance of sports cars after that amazing boom of the 90s where, you know, a lot of our favorite cars came out of. And then we sailed that right into a recession where car companies went through some of the hardest times in the history of their existence. So I don't think it's surprising that 10 years later you suddenly didn't have like that much technology. I'm surprised those car companies still existed. Like Ford was barely holding its head above water. Why? Like, of course the Mustang didn't get that much faster.
No, but my point is that, okay, well, in the early 2000s, sure. But my point is, like, why, if this is supposed to be one of the companies at, like, the head of the game in terms of technology, I mean, they're not Mercedes, they're not BMW, but, like, for a layman's sports car, they're supposed to be at the top of the game because they used to be.
Yeah.
Like, why is this car worst in every way to a Camaro? And I'm using that as an example because that's the car that Throttle House compared this car to when they reviewed it. And it was worst in every single way.
Yeah, Throttle House did compare it to a Camaro. I think there's a lot of reasons why a car like this doesn't end up being as fast as a Camaro or as fun to drive as a Camaro. I think we're getting into the limitations of the V6 engine right there. So we start to, you know, increase the actual price of the car and the complexity of the car when we have to introduce forced induction. And that's another reason that the initial 350Z was naturally aspirated and they were able to cram so much value into it. And a Camaro has that V8 in it that Chevy makes 3 of every minute, like, for history. Mm-hmm. So I get that there's like a little bit more value in a car like this, and this, in the price point it had to exist in, can't really compete with that. But I don't agree that it's worse in every single way. I mean,
give me a way that it's better
than a Camaro. I mean, it's smaller and more nimble. That's a thing right there.
Literally not. Like, if you watch all the reviews, like, everyone says that this thing feels heavier, is sluggish, is less nimble. Like,
but it isn't heavier, is it?
Let's look it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so the weights are comparable.
Yeah.
Ranging from 36, 37, like, they're pretty much comparable. But the way that this thing feels is literally not sports car-ish at all. It's not snappy. It's... We don't even need to pull up track times this time. I don't think you're even going to make me do that.
No,
because you know it's going to be slower. Like, what is this thing good at?
Look, I get it. I get that when you take a look at the MSRP compared to an American car where, you know, it's one of the most produced cars of all time, that at a comparable price point, it's not going to match up. I get it. The value of this car cannot be in the numbers. It can't. And I get that they said that around a track, like, they mentioned something about the hydraulic steering, how when it switched to electronic steering, it didn't maintain some of the feel, and how this thing felt sluggish around corners, and how it felt like not really tuned to be a sports car. And then, they brought in the Camaro, and it had solved all those problems for the same price point, obviously. Mm-hmm. I think an enthusiast is not going to buy a $40,000 car and then expect it to be perfect out the box. I think your intention is to buy this thing and then make it your own. So why are we even doing that? Like, who is even taking a base Camaro as an enthusiast and tracking that and being like, boy, I love this thing?
That's such a cop-out, though. That's such a cop-out answer to say, like, this car sucks, so, well, you know, we're going to buy it and make it better. It's like, it should not suck from the factory.
That's not realistic, because the car from the factory, it has to adhere to standards that are completely irrelevant to enthusiasts. Think about your G35 or my 300ZX. Think about every mod that was done to that to make it more fun to drive and faster.
Yeah, but you're missing the modern day enthusiast. Like, the modern day enthusiast used to be 240SX, used to be 350Z. The modern day enthusiast is either German, driving something like a BMW or Mercedes, or they're driving something American. Like,
Yeah.
the modern-day enthusiast isn't driving this.
I think
And, of course, there's a small class of people that are always going to ride for this. But for the most part, like, it's important to look at, like, kids coming out of high school, like, the next generation. Like, they don't want this car. Like...
I think, unfortunately, that's true, but I think that's still a byproduct of marketing. I think German cars and American cars have been in a horsepower and track time race, and they've been able to associate their marketing and everything that is enticing people to buy their cars around those things. I feel like Japanese cars have been mostly absent from that, and they're coming in and they're not even getting into that battle. They know they can't win it. They have smaller displacements in their engines, and they don't make as nearly as many of those things. They're never going to be able to compete on price and horsepower, so they have to do something different.
So it should handle better in the corners. It should be a lighter vehicle. It should, like, if you're going to make a heavy car, you give it power. If you don't have the power, then you make a light car. Like,
I have no doubt that with slight modifications, this thing can handle better in corners and can drive however you want it to be.
yes, but we all, like, we got tons of comments in the Instagram when we were talking about the Supra compared to the Mustang. And again, it's stock to stock. Like, we gotta compare these cars stock, because once we start talking about modifications, which, like, I'm happy to do with everyone in the comments, that's a completely different ballgame. Like, stock to stock is the only, like, standard where we can compare cars here. And, like, this thing should have been better stock. Maybe not perfect, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But it should have been better stock.
I don't know, dude, because if your argument here is the Throttle House video of, like, how this felt around a track, like, you can't compare that based on stock, because this car could not sell as a track car. Like, this thing needs to be comfortable to drive on roads. It needs to be safe. It needs to be under-tuned so that it gets excellent gas mileage for the person who's driving this thing to work and back.
Okay, well, it seems like we've got differing opinions. Let's state some facts.
Okay. Facts don't care about your feelings.
0 to 60, 4.3 seconds.
Respectable.
What's not respectable?
5s for a sports car these days, not respectable.
Okay. How about this fact? It was 0.17 seconds faster around a track. 0.17, so barely anything.
Yeah.
Than the 370Z from last generation.
Yeah, I mean, it's a turbocharged car that's violently undertuned. Like, I would get why it's comparable, sure.
No, but my point is, like, cars are supposed to get better. Like, and this car is literally not better than the last one. Like,
right. The reality of taking numbers and you know, track time set by somebody who you have no idea who they were driving the car or what they experienced when they drove that car. Mm-hmm. The reality of that is that when you're somebody who, you know, given our age, whatever, got your big boy job, might have some money to buy the first new car you've ever bought in your life.
Yeah.
You go shopping around for something. You are looking at something that brings you back to your childhood. You're looking at something that's fun. You're looking at something potentially 6-speed manual because you're old school, you're an enthusiast, you want something like that. You see this. You see that it's got a turbocharged V6 engine. You hear how it sounds. You look at the interior. Everything in it is just hitting for you that it's driver centric, it's fun, it's raw, it's everything that the Z car was when you were growing up. You're going to go after that car, and you're going to be so thankful when you're driving it that there are still cars like this that are being built, period, that you're not going to care whether it's 0.2 or whatever seconds faster around the Nürburgring. It just is irrelevant to you. That's not what the car is for. I don't get how, like, we're in the forest staring at the trees, but we're missing the area around us for what it means that Nissan is still making a Z car in 2024 when, you know, the combustion engine is going away regardless.
Yeah, I think that's and we'll get to the showroom, we can talk about the interior later. I think that that's well said. But I think that, like, again, it's a little bit of a cop-out. Like, you're trying to defend a car that wouldn't need defending if it was just better. Like, and I get the things you're saying, and they're valid. Like, it's a 6-speed manual. It's very nostalgic. Like, I had in my notes that like this car was just like literally the customer was a boomer who can't stop saying the word homage.
That's pretty good.
Like, that's what this is. Like,
Pretty good.
like, oh, it's the fair lady. Like, just like it just like I get it. And you know what? They say that you can't hate something that you don't have the capacity to love. And that's what is going on here with me.
Sure.
This car broke my heart. That's a better way of saying it, because my first car was a G35. I absolutely loved the 350Z, and I was super excited for what they were going to do with this one. And I think that's what, like, a lot of the aggression towards this vehicle. It's not like I don't understand what the Z brings to the table and what it was supposed to bring to the table. I'm disappointed.
I don't know, dude. I mean, let's look at it from a different lens. This thing is the exact same MSRP as a Mustang GT. Both of them start at $42,000. This is maybe $300 higher MSRP.
The Mustang's how much?
41.95, I believe, is the Mustang MSRP number, and there's like 42.3.
Okay.
I'm in the market for a 6-speed manual sports car, and I need something brand new with a warranty. I want either a V8 or a V6 twin turbo. Both of those sound good to me. I think both of these are good options.
So let's look. I want to keep this with the Camaro example, because we did the Super Mustang. We had the argument there. I want to compare this to like just a Camaro.
Yeah.
I think Throttle House did a great job choosing that car. Same price, let's say.
Yeah.
Spec'd to the same price. What are you taking?
A V8 versus a V6 twin turbo? At this point in my life, I would prefer a V6 twin turbo. I mean, that sounds a lot more fun. I want to get the little stu-to-do blow-off noise. I want to be in the Z car just because of obviously loving Z cars for my entire life. I mean, it seems like a blast to drive, whether or not some stodgy car reviewer decides that it's some increment less fun than another one.
No, that's actually wild to me. Like, it's actually wild to think that I would take this over that Camaro. Yeah. And again, like, you know what's happening, dude? You're getting the intersection, and I think the intersection point already happened, where, like, the Japanese sports car was so incredible that it was really riding the tailcoats of how dope it was. And as they got worse and worse and worse, it still kept some of that allure.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the spectrum, American cars were so bad that, like, even as they continue to get better and better and better, people are still saying things like, oh, it's a Camaro, it's a Mustang, it sucks in the corners, even though it's showing on multiple tracks with multiple different drivers that it's the superior vehicle.
Yeah.
Like, at a certain point, we gotta let go of the nostalgia and be like, what is the better car today?
Again, dude, I think every car is so good. You've made this point where it's like, yes, it's what's the better car, but what are your criteria? Every single car is so good. Like, this is going to be able to get brought onto a track and just be respectable on that track for $40,000, but it's also going to be able to get you to work and back reliably, comfortably.
Yeah, everything can do that.
Yeah.
For the price, 40 grand. I don't know, man. I just wish this car was 30. I really think you could make a strong, and I get it. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But like, in my imagination where I can do whatever I want, like, this car, $32,000, is like, okay, it's a little bit slower than the Camaro, but it's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
Like, it's a little bit worse in the corners, but it's a little bit cheaper, and it's cool. Like, I get that argument, and, like, when I was buying my G35, that was the argument I made to myself. It was a better car, but again, it was a cheaper car because it was so good when it came out that even 10 years later, it was better than the cars that were coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I just think value, and like, this is such a reoccurring theme for me. Value is everything to me. It's everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, yes, I feel you. I love value too. But the reality of value is that we know from business when somebody says that they like or don't like something, it's just value is the equation of what would you be willing to pay for that. And when you're not the market for that car, you might not necessarily even ever have an equation that makes sense for you.
Agreed.
Like, in order to make you like this car, like, they would need to sell it for a number that's completely unrealistic.
Okay, that makes sense. So your point is that, like, there's a community of people out there who like this enough to pay the money that they're asking for it.
Yeah.
I guess the sales numbers will tell us that.
Oh, come on, not with the sales numbers now.
You know, I've always loved those like 3 gauges on the top.
Mm.
Like those have always been cool. They've kept those from the previous generations. The screen looks alright. The inside of this car looks okay. Like I don't really have anything against it.
Yeah. It's classic, it's humble, it's driver focused, like it pays good homage to the previous.
Yeah, no, I think it's very nice. And I think it doesn't try to do too much, which is awesome. And again, I don't want to discount the fact that this thing comes in a manual. Like, that counts for something. So few cars do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exterior design-wise, dude, like, I love this thing. I think the body lines that they drew on it are so, like, simplistic, but actually communicate so much. And I've, you know, obviously growing up, I watched, like, all the videos about the people who were designing the Z32, and, like, how they carved it out of the clay, and, like, how they had all of their, like, design principles and stuff down. And just studying that and just watching those videos over and over, I see so many of those same principles come through here, and it's, like, obvious that they still put that level of care into designing their cars, and especially, like, knowing now there's so many more things that they need to actually design around, like so many more requirements and so many more electronic components that need to be housed inside this thing. So it's not really so much as, like, you know, being able to shape the shell any way you want. You have to make this thing work.
No, it is a beautiful car, and it really does do a really good job of keeping that retro style.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, with that said, we can dive into that in the Glaze score. So, first things first on the Glaze score, we've talked about this already, but performance, what do you got?
Performance, let's see. I got a 6, and my 6, I'm going to say, it's pretty much par, but it's saved from being tunable. So par, I say, is 5, and because it's so easily tunable, because it's a twin-turbo V6 engine, only putting out 400 horsepower, I know you can take that thing higher, and I know you can put a lot of components into this thing to make it handle a lot better.
Is it actually tunable? Because you got clobbered in the comments on Instagram saying the Super was more tunable than the Coyote.
I'm not dealing with these people being like, oh no, the factory locked me out. Like, bro, go learn how to tune your car. Like, just figure it out. Oh no, somebody on the internet's charging me thousands of dollars. You got scammed. Go learn how to tune your car.
Oh man. Okay, so I gave this thing a 4. And again, I know that's big, shake my head, but like,
crazy.
Hear me out. Like, this thing is worse than a Mustang GT, which I think is the benchmark for value performance. So like, I can't give this thing a 5. It's not a 5. Like,
it's not even. It's so comparable to a Mustang GT.
Well, it's much slower. It's worse in the corners. It's heavier. Like, it's just a worse car. Like,
stock, I'll give you that it is all those things. But this is a lump of clay that is multiple for you. When did we start saying that Japanese budget sports cars were, you know, had to be amazing stock? When did that happen?
I don't know, and it's a decent point. But if I don't compare this thing stock, then like what? Yeah, sure, I could give this 1,000 horsepower and then it'd be a 10. Like, okay.
Well, I mean, you know, sometimes it's as easy as just turning up the boost, and then now you have a completely different car. Or something like this that's so obviously tuned to, like, the suspension is tuned to be on the road. Maybe lowering it and putting some sort of sports suspension would make a big difference.
All right, well, together we gave it a 5, which is fair. Design,
I gave it an 8. And I recognize that that's glazing. I just think this thing's beautiful, and I think that every single component of it comes from a previous Z car, and that is just so cool to me.
I actually agree. I gave this thing a 6. Again, it is better than the average design car. But like, an M3 is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, a new M3 is beautiful. Like, we've been talking about a lot of really beautiful cars.
Yeah. Toyota Camry TRDs are beautiful too.
I don't think this thing is record-breaking with the design, truly, but I think that, like, let me put it this way. When the Supra came out, I was extremely disappointed with the design.
Mm-hmm.
This didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
This just kind of gave me what I expected, and I was happy about that.
I guess I'm just geekier with it, and there's, like, the things about this that excite me are much more like subtle. Like, I'm a huge fan of like retro futuristic design, and this is one of the best production applications of that I've ever seen.
Agreed. I won't knock that.
Yeah.
Okay. The big question. Value.
You might want to put on your seatbelt. I didn't go crazy with this. Honestly, I was looking at it and I was like, say 9. Say 9, do it. But no, I said 7. And the case I'm going to make for my 7 is, I think this thing has all the components that you would need to make an amazing sports car. I think it has 4 piston brakes up front. I think it has a 3-liter V6 with twin turbos on it. Like, all of the complexity for building an excellent driving car are already there. I think they need to be tuned a little differently.
I gave it a 3.
I should have went 9.
I'm really not trying to be ridiculous. I'm not trying to pull numbers out of the air. I'm not trying to like just be obnoxious.
Oh my god.
I just really think it's a terrible deal. Like, you can spend less money and get a better car. So I just don't know how this is good value.
You can't. You can spend the same money and get a better car on a Camaro or a Mustang GT.
A Mustang GT is cheaper than this, I'm pretty sure.
No, they're exactly the same price. A Mustang GT MSRP, we also got cooked on this in the super video, is $41,900. And the MSRP on this is $42,300.
Yeah, it's just so much more value. Like, how did this happen? This is the problem with these cars. I hate Mustangs. Everyone in my life knows that I hate Mustangs, and here I am, just being the champion for American muscle. That's how bad these cars are. Like,
dude, Ford knows what they're doing, man. I don't know how they're making a profit on these things. They must be... You know what it is, bro? It's because they charge $6,000 for a package that's essentially a set of wheels and an intake. That's why. Because
the comments got to him. Dude, the Pack 2 comments got to him.
No, the Pack 2 is like $9,000. I was talking about the Performance Pack 1. Nah, bro, the Performance Pack 2, they give you 20 extra horsepower and a set of wheels, and they call it a $9,000 Performance Pack. That's where all the profit margin is. That's why they can sell a Mustang GT with 500 horsepower for like $41,000.
Oh man, the Coyote Glazers they're a serious breed.
No, dude, they came
I'm not
strong.
crossing them, bro. Okay, all right. Perception. What do you got?
Oh man, unfortunately, nobody's gonna be as geeky as me, and the only people who are gonna thumbs up you in this car are other dudes. I gave this one a 5, and my notes are what somebody would probably say about it, and they would say, "Oh, that's cute."
I gave this thing a 3 because no one cares about it at all.
Oh my god.
Everyone thinks this is, I don't even know, definitely sucks. But what I'm learning is that Michael's going to make a great husband one day. He's going to make one lucky lady very happy because all he sees is potential.
Bro, you're ridiculous.
All he sees is potential, dude.
When I'm looking at a thing like this, bro, look at that. It's got everything you need. Oh my god.
Oh, man.
You don't know how to see value in something, dude. You need people in marketing departments to shout big numbers at you. That's what makes you happy.
I just need, okay, well, let's see. A sports car, is it fast? No. Does it handle well? No.
Bro.
Is it light? No. Like, what else makes a sports car?
It's a 3-liter twin turbo. How can you say it's not fast?
It's not.
Oh my god.
It's not fast.
Guaranteed that boost kicks in and it pushes you back in your seat. Guaranteed.
Maybe your baby neck.
Don't comment baby neck on this video. Nobody comment baby neck. I'm banning you from the comments if I see baby neck. Control F baby neck banned.
Okay. Well, this actually went really fast with this car. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. But I think we had a lot to say. Again, like, we both really do have a very strong connection to this car specifically. Both of our first cars.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And we don't want to see it go away. And these sales numbers are pretty dismal. So go out there and buy a Nissan Z. Because if you don't, I'm pretty sure they're going to discontinue it.
Yeah. Just write a letter to Nissan and say, hello, Nissan, please make this car fast and not blow. And then I think we can save the Z.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh man. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.